Today on Rappler.
There's only one argument for another term, and that is the integrity, selflessness, and dedication of President Aquino.
Edgar Erice says President Aquino is the best argument for term extensions.
It's a very scary reason, no? Because you're now tinkering with the check and balances of the Constitution.
While Sherwin Gatchalian says the Constitution prevents a president from perpetuating himself in power. An American doctor given an experimental drug is now Ebola-free. Hello, I'm Palparan. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Two lawmakers clash on President Aquino's shift on charter change. One argues for continuity, the other says perpetuating himself in office is abuse of power. Valenzuela Representative Sherwin Gatchalian defends the single 6-year term for presidents enshrined in the charter, saying it prevents an incumbent from abusing power and perpetuating himself in office.
I think the framers also took note of the institutional imbalances and integrity of our country. That's why they limited it to 6 years.
Okay.
In the US, they allowed to have 4 years and your election of another 4 years because the institutions there are very strong. No? The president cannot abuse his power no,
The
to
checks and
perpetuate
balances,
again and can use the funds of the government to campaign. Where here in our country, sad to say, and this is a reality, the institutions are very weak and it's prone to politics. That's why
Gatchalian also slams President Aquino's reason for wanting charter change to curb the Supreme Court's alleged judicial overreach. He says tinkering with the checks and balances of political power is dangerous, with re-election a potential cause for power abuse.
one is the balance of power. And this reason came about after the ruling of the Supreme Court on the DAP, which I think is really a very is a knee-jerk reaction, to what the Supreme Court ruled, And for me, if this will be a reason, it's a very scary reason, because you're now tinkering with the check and balances of the Constitution.
In contrast, Caloocan Representative Edgar Erice urges charter change, saying re-election will continue Aquino's brand of leadership, selfless and dedicated to reforms.
President is only 4 years in office. Pero ang binabaliktad niya, what he is reversing is 21 years of corruption of Marcos, 10 years of Gloria, and 2 years of Era. I think President Aquino is the best president that we ever had, and he's too young to retire. He's only 54 years old.
The opposition's presidential aspirant, Vice President Jejomar Binay, leads surveys, with the ruling Liberal Party's main bet, Interior Secretary Mar Rojas, trailing far behind. Erice says if people reject charter change, the president's party will still prevail in 2016.
So, palagay ko, pwede pa siya. Pero kung talagang ayaw ng mga boss, ayaw ng mga mamamayang Pilipino, we still have the second best, Secretary Mar Rojas. At palagay ko naman, hindi mananalo ang una sa Liberal Party sa 2016. Well, there's only one argument for another term, and that is the integrity, selflessness, and dedication of President Aquino. Kasal sa bayan si Presidente, at wag muna nating hiwalayan yung isang magaling na pangulo.
Linda CADAPAN, mother of missing student Sherwin CADAPAN, wants retired Major General Jovito Palparan to come clean and stop denying his involvement in her daughter's disappearance. It's been 8 years since the disappearance of Sherwin CADAPAN and Karen Empeño. Witnesses said the two were tortured upon Palparan's orders. He was finally arrested on August 12, but the search for the missing girls is still not over.
Alam ko, sinasabi niya na gumagawa ka lang ng iyong misyon. Ngunit alam mo naman, maraming nasasaktan na mga nanay, mga magulang, mga kapatid, At ang mga anak na mga nawawalaan ng magulang, sana naman tinitingnan mo rin yung ganong magiging kahinatnan ng buhay nila. At saka sana huwag ka na magpatuloy pa sa pagsinungaling na incomplete denials na hindi mo kilala sila, Sherlyn at Karen. Alam na alam namin may alam ka. Kung siya ay talagay pusong demonyo, wari ko hindi niya maintindihan yan. Pero pipilitin ko sa kanya na sana kung nakikinig ka, talikuran mo na yung pusong demonyo dahil wala ka ring mararating. At matutuwa ang mga kaanak ng biktima na ikaw ay mabubulok sa kulungan.
CADAPAN says many others suffered because of Palparan, who has been infamously tagged as the butcher by activists. She says Palparan's victims are afraid to testify, but CADAPAN says she won't give up fighting for justice.
Actually, ganito yan eh. It's not only for my Sherlyn. Maraming mga kaanak ng biktima, iyakan, ganitong nangyayari sa anak, sa kanilang asawa, sa kanilang mga magulang. So, ang tinuturo lahat ay si dating General Jov'T Palparan. So, iniisip ko, yung mga natatakot na mga nanay, mga kapatid na yun, may ebidensya sila pero hindi pwedeng lumaban sa court kasi takot silang iharas. Pero sabi ko, kailangan talaga hahanapin dahil katungkulan ng isang ina para hanapin yung kanyang nawawalang anak.
Despite the long years of waiting, CADAPAN says she has not given up on the hope that she will see her daughter alive and well.
I still believe na isang araw makakasama muli namin yung aking anak. Since nang inalis nila na buhay, ang dapat hinihiling ko sa kanila, ibabalik din sa amin na buhay.
Anong naging epekto sa inyo nung negotiators from the government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front or MILF submitted the second draft of the Bangsamoro Basic Law to President Benigno Aquino Wednesday night. The proposed law is a product of the final peace deal signed between the government and the MILF on March 27, which aims to end 4 decades of war in southern Philippines. The law seeks to replace the present autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao with a parliamentary form of government with greater political and fiscal powers. The process reached a roadblock when the MILF accused the government of diluting the first draft of the proposed law submitted for review. For the government to cut costs, Senator Ralph Recto suggests installing solar panels in government offices. Based on the proposed 2015 national budget, government offices are allocated 12.9 billion pesos or $294 million for electricity and water bills. To keep government from spending this much money, Rector proposed using renewable energy. On August 12, he filed the proposed Green Energy Government Offices Act, which prescribes measures to reduce the carbon footprint of government buildings. If passed, the bill will require the installation of green energy systems and the creation of energy conservation guidelines. The projected 12.9 billion peso budget is only the latest peak in a trend of increased spending on utilities. In 2012, national government offices spent 9.2 billion pesos or $210 million. In 2014, it went up to 12.2 billion pesos or $278 million. On this date in 1983, former Senator Ninoy Aquino was killed. Malacanang commemorates the life of the martyred senator by posting his undelivered speech from 31 years ago. On his return to the Philippines on August 21, 1983, Aquino had planned to deliver a speech after years of exile in the United States. He wrote, "I am prepared for the worst and have decided against the advice of my mother, my spiritual advisor, many of my tested friends, and a few of my most valued political mentors. A death sentence awaits me." He never got to deliver this speech. Upon stepping out of the plane, he was shot in the head, an assassination that triggered the People Power Revolution 3 years later. A new study warns inequality and labor issues could worsen under the ASEAN Economic Community or AEC unless countries started taking decisive action. The AEC, set to come into force in December 2015, is an ambitious plan to create a single market comprising the 10 countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN. The AEC could lead to 14 million additional jobs and increase overall growth by 7.1% by 2025. But the International Labor Organization and the Asian Development Bank say the gains won't be distributed evenly. Cambodia and Vietnam stand to gain most in terms of job generation, while the Philippines comes up third. While there will be a net job gain under the AEC, it will also destroy jobs. The food processing industry will be the worst hit in terms of job losses in Cambodia, Indonesia, and Laos, while the sector will see gains in the Philippines and Thailand. Thailand's National Assembly chooses coup leader General Prayut Chan-o-cha as Prime Minister in a move seen as cementing the military's control of the politically turbulent country. Nobody opposed the selection of the army chief, who ousted an elected government in a bloodless takeover on May 22. Prayut is seen as an opponent of fugitive former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra, whose overthrow in a 2006 coup triggered Thailand's long-running political crisis. Since seizing power, the junta imposed martial law and summoned hundreds of opponents and activists for questioning. An American doctor who contracted the Ebola virus will be released from the Emory Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, Thursday. NBC News reports Dr. Kent Brantley was a missionary in Liberia when he contracted Ebola. Before being flown back to the U.S. in early August, Brantley and fellow aid worker Nancy Wrightbull received the experimental drug ZMapp. Wrightbull will be discharged from the isolation unit, but it's unclear if she'll be released from the hospital. The World Health Organization says more than 1,300 people have died from the Ebola epidemic. U.S. President Barack Obama warns against what he calls the cancer of jihadist extremism in Iraq, as Washington revealed it failed in an operation to free U.S. hostages in neighboring Syria. Obama urged global action against the Islamic State of Iraq in Syria or ISIS a day after the terrorist group released a video showing a masked militant beheading U.S. reporter James Foley. In the video, a black-clad man said Foley was killed to avenge U.S. airstrikes against ISIS. The group threatened to kill another reporter, Steven Sotloff, unless Obama changes course. The White House and the Pentagon said U.S. military forces had recently tried to rescue a number of American hostages held in Syria, but had failed. Obama said ISIS must be defeated, citing the group's attacks against innocent civilians. He adds, "No just God would stand for what they did yesterday and what they do every single day." Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 2, Hamas's armed wing Abu Obaida warns foreign airlines against flying into Israel's capital Tel Aviv and declares the truce talks in Cairo are over. Israeli warplanes carry out dozens of airstrikes across Gaza Thursday in response to multiple rocket attacks on sovereign Israel as 9 days of calm exploded into bloodshed. Last month, many international airlines briefly suspended flights into Tel Aviv after a Hamas rocket struck close to the airport. And at number 8, Jakarta is the latest country to hit private car service app Uber. Citing licensing issues, Jakarta authorities threatened to shut down the app after it officially launched in the city on August 13. Authorities fear Uber will undercut the current taxi market and may evade tax if not registered legally. Uber already sparked protests from taxi drivers in other countries for similar reasons. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com/wrap. For a social media post of the day, there's a new outrageous trend on social media these days, and it's called the Ice Bucket Challenge. Challengers dump ice-cold water over their heads and tag friends to respond to the dare in 24 hours. It's all for a good cause. Money raised goes to ALS Association in the United States, a group dedicated to awareness and treatment of the degenerative disease amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour took part in it. So did former U.S. President George W. Bush. Microsoft founder Bill Gates took on the challenge too, as he got tagged by Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page, which crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories with the most clicks. It's a pretty negative day on our mood navigator today. We have few stories that stand out as positive stories. We have this story honoring Ninoy and Cory Aquino. It's a story about Ateneo renaming its School of Government after Ninoy and Cory Aquino, 78% happy. A blog piece, The Iglesia ni Cristo and the Mentality of Exclusivity. It's about the culture of the Iglesia ni Cristo, 50% inspired. The other stories are red stories on our mood navigator. Mayor Binay concedes possible Makati building is overpriced, 92% angry. Court acquits Chavit Singson of graft, 84% angry. And the story that got the most number of votes on our mood navigator today, from cakes to buildings, Binay's overpriced and chop chop. It's a story about the anomaly surrounding the Binay dynasty in Makati, 94% angry. These red stories all contributed to the mood of the day. Today, most people are angry. That is Rappler's newscast for today, Thursday, August 21, 2014. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Paterno S. Makel. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.